Welcome back, dear listeners, to your familiar nighttime story hour. Tonight, we bring you a chilling tale titled The Forest Spirit's Curse. If this is your first time visiting the channel, please support us by hitting the subscribe button, and don't forget to click the bell icon so you won't miss any new stories. If you enjoy tonight's story, please leave a like. The more likes a story gets, the more YouTube will recommend it to others. Thank you so much, and without further delay, let's dive right into the tale. The faint sunlight filtered through the thick mist, casting a glow over the dew-laden grass. The distant mountains loomed like shadows on the horizon, blending with the pale sky as birds sang their morning symphony. Amidst the serene wilderness, a young woman with a radiant face and flowing black dress walked barefoot through the forest. Her steps rustled the dry leaves beneath her feet, and on her back, she carried a bamboo basket, ready for a day of foraging. Her name was Ho Lam, just 21 years old, yet already married with a little daughter. Compared to her peers, she was considered fortunate to have a loving husband who worked tirelessly to care for their family. That morning, her husband, Wileen, had left early to tend the fields, so Ho Lam entrusted their child to a neighbor, promising to share some of the bamboo shoots she collected as a token of gratitude. By midday, her basket was brimming with fresh shoots, and though the weight bowed her back, she smiled with satisfaction, knowing the harvest would sustain her family through the coming rainy days. The forest floor was slick from the previous night's rain, and as she carefully navigated the muddy path, her foot slipped on a wet patch of grass. She tumbled down a slope, landing painfully against a small, dilapidated wooden shrine hidden in the undergrowth. Dazed, Ho Lam slowly pushed herself upright, wincing as a sharp pain shot through her foot. Looking down, she gasped. Her foot had crushed a decayed human skull, so brittle that it shattered upon impact. A jagged piece of bone had lodged deep into her flesh, and blood trickled onto the forest floor. She gritted her teeth, tearing a strip of cloth from her clothing to bandage the wound after chewing some medicinal leaves to ease the pain. In her distress, she failed to notice the broken ceramic jar near the skull, inscribed with strange symbols. A tarnished silver ring rolled out from the fragments, coated in dark soil. Slowly, an inky black smoke began to rise from the ring, swirling around her feet like a living entity. Ho Lam gathered her scattered bamboo shoots and, limping, began her slow journey home, unaware that the black smoke had seeped into her wound, intertwining with the fabric of her bandage. Darkness clouded her vision, and she collapsed on the village path. A passerby spotted her unconscious body and alerted Wileen, who rushed to carry his wife back to their hut, his heart heavy with fear. For 3 days, Ho Lam burned with fever, her body racked with violent convulsions. Villagers offered remedies, and Wileen scoured the forest for herbs, but nothing eased her suffering. Blood trickled from her nose, and her skin turned an unnatural shade of gray. The villagers whispered that she would not survive the night. Yet, on the 4th evening, she abruptly opened her eyes, completely healed, as if the sickness had never touched her. From that day on, Ho Lam refused to leave the house, claiming exhaustion. Her once sun-kissed skin grew paler with each passing day, and an eerie beauty overtook her features. A dark, bruise-like mark appeared around her neck, so she always wore a scarf, saying the cold night air made her ill. Wileen, devoted and patient, never complained, shouldering all the household burdens without question. But then, strange occurrences began to plague the village. People fell ill with agonizing stomach pains, their bodies bloating grotesquely before succumbing to death. The corpses emitted a rancid stench, and swarms of black flies buzzed relentlessly around the decaying bodies. Fear gripped the villagers, who began to avoid one another, terrified of the spreading plague. Wileen warned Ho Lam and their daughter, Ho and I, to stay indoors for safety. But one day, Ho and I tugged at her father's sleeve, whispering with wide, frightened eyes, "Daddy, Mommy smells bad. I can't stand it." Wileen frowned and knelt beside his daughter. "That's not a nice thing to say. Mommy will be sad if she hears you. Maybe a rat died somewhere in the house. I'll find it and throw it away. Okay?" Ho and I nodded, but deep down, She knew the smell wasn't from a rat. The rotting odor clung to her mother's body like a sinister shadow. That night, as Wileen slept soundly, Ho Lam carefully removed her scarf and lay on the wooden floor. Her body began to writhe, her hands clawing at the ground, leaving deep scratch marks. The veins on her face darkened, branching out like black roots as her eyes rolled back. Then, with a sickening squelch, her head detached from her body, intestines trailing behind it like grotesque tendrils. The floating head silently drifted out the window, vanishing into the pitch-black forest. Ho and I watched everything from her bed, paralyzed with fear. She buried her face in the blanket, praying her mother wouldn't notice she was awake. The little girl clung to her trembling hope that her mother wouldn't come back to devour her, just like the forest spirits in her grandmother's ghost stories. And as the first light of dawn crept over the village, the curse of the forest lingered, unseen, insatiable, and growing ever darker. Let me know if you'd like me to refine the translation further or add more details to intensify the horror atmosphere. I'd love to help bring your vision to life. After trying for a long time, Ho and I finally gave up. The little girl curled up in her blanket, pressing close to her father, hoping to find comfort and dispel the fear in her heart. In the darkness, Ho and I sobbed silently, afraid that if her mother returned, she would discover everything. In the pitch-black night, a long, echoing laugh reverberated through the forest, disturbing the eerie silence and sending birds flying in all directions. Ho and I knew her mother might be back. She shrank closer to her father, clutching him tightly in her terror. Suddenly, Ho Lam's head flew through the window, her mouth still chewing on the half-eaten corpse of a dead rat. Black blood and sickly yellow stains smeared across the intestines, releasing a suffocating stench. The squelching, grotesque sound of chewing filled the quiet room, making Ho-Nee's stomach churn as if everything she had eaten that evening was about to come back up. Trembling, she clung to her father, wishing desperately that this was just a nightmare, that when she woke up, her mother would still be the gentle, loving woman she once was. But the wet, sticky sounds of Ho Lam's intestines slowly reattaching to her body snapped Ho and I back to reality. It all happened faster than when her mother had ripped her own head off. Once her organs fully merged with her body, Ho Lam slowly stood up and went downstairs to wash the filth from herself. Afterward, she returned to bed, lying down gently next to her husband and child as if nothing had happened. Ho and I, overwhelmed by fear, fainted without realizing it. By the time she woke up, the morning sun had already risen. She didn't dare stay home alone with her mother, so when she saw her father, Wileen, preparing to go to the fields with a hoe, she begged to be taken to her friend Ho Mei's house. At first, Wileen refused, as there was a disease spreading in the village, but after Ho and I cried and pleaded relentlessly, he relented. As soon as she arrived, Ho and I recounted everything that had happened the previous night to Ho Mei. Ho Mei's mother overheard the story, and her face immediately darkened. She gently comforted Ho and I and took her to the village shaman. Upon seeing the girl, the shaman frowned. Ho-Nee's skin was gray, her entire body carrying the foul stench of decaying flesh, making the old man uncomfortable. The shaman, an elderly figure with sun-weathered skin, sparse blackened teeth, and piercing eyes, wore a long black robe embroidered with traditional patterns. His voice was rough and raspy. It took much coaxing from Ho Mei's mother for Ho and I to recount the events once more. After a long series of questions, the serious expressions of the adults made Ho and I start to sense the malice hidden in their gazes. That afternoon, as Wileen was packing up to return home, he noticed Wineem, the shaman's apprentice, waiting for him by a tree. Wileen hurried over, and Wineem informed him that the shaman wanted to speak with him. When they arrived at the shaman's house, Ho and I was already there. Confused but concerned, Wileen sat down beside his daughter. The shaman handed him a cup of thick, pitch-black liquid and insisted he drink it all. Even after returning home, Wileen remained dazed by the shaman's words. His thoughts were interrupted by Ho Lam's voice. "What are you thinking about so deeply?" Startled, Wileen looked up to see his wife carrying a tray of food, placing it in front of him. But the moment she approached, an unbearable stench overwhelmed him, causing him to retch violently. Ho Lam, worried, hurried to his side, patting his back and asking if he was all right. Yet, the closer she got, the stronger the foul odor became. Without thinking, Wileen instinctively leaned away, not wanting her to touch him. Ho Lam frowned, and Wileen quickly made an excuse. Maybe I'm sick. I don't want to get you infected. You're already weak. It would be terrible if you caught something. You and Ho and I should eat. I'll go outside to gather herbs and make medicine. Seeing his reasoning, Ho Lam nodded and didn't press further. That night, as usual, Ho Lam waited for her husband to fall asleep before she began her horrific transformation. But Wileen only pretended to be asleep, his ears alert to every sound. First came the scratching of nails against the wooden floor, followed by Ho Lam's low growl, and finally, the wet, squishy sound of her intestines slowly sliding out of her body. Wileen cracked his eyes open, and the sight before him shattered his soul. The woman he loved, the mother of his child, was pulling her entire digestive tract out of her body and flying out the window. Once she disappeared into the night, Wileen cautiously approached her lifeless, headless body. The corpse, with its deflated stomach, looked like an empty sack of skin. Summoning all his courage, he tried to lift the body to take it to the place the shaman had instructed. But the moment he touched it, a cold, clammy sensation surged through his hands, and he recoiled in horror. "Father, are you going to kill Mother?" Honi's trembling voice startled Wileen. He hurriedly tried to explain. "Your mother, she's turned into a Malai. If we don't stop her, many people will die, sweetheart." But before he could say more, the villagers, having discovered the truth, stormed toward the house with torches in hand. The flames lit up their furious faces, and their shouts echoed through the night. Sensing danger, Ho Lam's head quickly flew back, trying to reunite with her body, but it was caught in a net the villagers had strung up in advance. The moment they saw her trapped, their anger exploded. "Kill it! Kill the Malai! The Malai's child must be a Malai too. Kill her as well." Panic-stricken, Wileen regretted not running away with his family when he had the chance. But it was too late. He crouched down, held his daughter close, and whispered, "When the fighting starts, sneak out through the back and run to the cave where we sheltered from the rain before. Hide there until I come for you. No matter who calls you, don't answer unless it's me. Do you understand?" Wileen then carried Ho Lam's lifeless body outside to face the mob. The villagers immediately seized the corpse, hacking it apart with machetes, their furious cries mingling with the gruesome sounds of blade meeting bone. Ho Lam's head, still trapped in the net, wept tears of blood as she saw her body being destroyed. Even in her final moments, her mouth curved into a gentle smile as she looked at her husband. A smile that said, whether she was human or a monster, she had always loved him, until her very last breath. The head of Ho Lam fell to the ground, disregarding the villagers who swarmed in to mercilessly hack her body. Yet, her eyes remained fixed on the fading figure of Wileen as he disappeared into the darkness. Wileen ran far away, looking back at the village where the people were setting his house ablaze. The raging flames consumed the old house and Ho Lam's body. He clenched his fists and pounded his chest in agony, filled with overwhelming regret and sorrow. In his mind, memories rushed by like a fast rewinding film. From the moment he first met Ho Lam, fell in love with her, married her, and had their daughter, Ho and I. Remembering his wife's pure, innocent smile made tears stream down Wileen's face uncontrollably. If he could choose again, he would undoubtedly take his wife and child and flee, even if it meant living a life of hardship, as long as they could be together. Wileen found his daughter in the very cave where they had promised to meet. He used Ho Lam's severed finger to gather firewood and light a flame, burning it to ashes. The silver ring on her finger had turned completely black after being washed clean. He threaded it onto a string and placed it around Honi's neck, treating it as a keepsake from her mother. He carefully wrapped the ashes of her finger in a handkerchief, vowing to bury them in a peaceful place once he and his daughter found safety. so their family could always be together. Afterward, he quickly led his daughter out of the forest, determined never to stay in that land of pain for another moment. The journey to the lowlands was arduous. They had left in such a hurry that Wileen brought nothing to eat. In the forest, they could survive by foraging for wild fruits or catching small animals. But once they reached the lowlands, another unexpected challenge arose. The people spoke a language neither he nor his daughter could understand. This made seeking help incredibly difficult. After the long journey, both father and daughter were filthy, covered in dirt, with flies buzzing around them. Strangers either avoided them or looked on indifferently. But in a corner of the market, a group of men stared intently at little Ho and I. After a while, one man signaled to the other, and they both approached, carrying a few boiled sweet potatoes. Overjoyed by the unexpected kindness, Wileen and Ho and I gratefully accepted the food, nodding in thanks. Wileen, inherently kind and trusting, never once thought to be wary of strangers. Knowing the father and daughter couldn't understand their words, the two men gestured, as if to say, "Come with us, we know someone who can help." Wileen, thinking they meant well, followed them without hesitation. But Ho and I clung to her father's clothes, shaking her head in fear. Wileen gently patted his daughter's back to comfort her and continued walking. The men led them to a large, deserted riverbank, where a big boat was docked. On the shore, a group of rough-looking men grilled fish over a fire. On the boat, 5 or 6 children, all around Honi's age, huddled together, their faces dirty, watching the fish with longing eyes. A cold dread began to creep into Wileen's heart. Realizing something was wrong, he tried to turn back, but suddenly a loud crack echoed. His ears rang, and he collapsed, pain searing through his skull. His vision blurred, and he could no longer hear Honi's terrified cries. But the instinct of a father wouldn't let him fall. With the last of his strength, Wileen pushed his daughter away, urging her to run. The cruel men, however, wouldn't allow that. Another brutal blow landed, and Wileen's world faded to black. Ho and I wailed in despair, desperately trying to stop the blood gushing from her father's head with her tiny hands. She sobbed uncontrollably, unable to understand why her father wouldn't wake up, why he wouldn't comfort her like he always did. The unbearable silence terrified her, filling her small heart with the crushing realization that she had lost the most precious person in her life. Meanwhile, the men laughed at her suffering. One of them grabbed her hand, trying to drag her onto the boat. Ho and I struggled, refusing to leave her father behind. In desperation, she bit the man's hand, causing him to flinch and let go. But before she could reach her father, he grabbed her hair, yanking her back, and slapped her face repeatedly until her lips split and bled. The man violently dragged her onto the boat and threw her down among the other terrified children. The boat started drifting downstream, carrying Ho and I away from her father's lifeless body. Days blurred together. The boat would stop at various ports, where wealthy people would come to inspect the children. Most of the time, the ones chosen were boys. Ho and I made a friend, a girl named Tuoi, who taught her bits of the local language. Over time, Ho and I began to understand what was happening. They had been kidnapped by human traffickers, who either bought or stole children to sell to the highest bidder. As the boat journeyed further, some children were taken away, while others were added. Ho and I and Tuoi thought they were lucky to be overlooked, but they had no idea a far worse fate awaited them. When the boat finally docked in Nam Kai, 2 large horse-drawn carriages waited by the pier. The men hurriedly ushered the children ashore, for little girls remained on the boat. A woman stepped out of the carriage, wearing a luxurious green silk dress, her hair neatly tied in a bun, and her neck adorned with glistening gold necklaces. Her wooden clogs clacked loudly against the stone pier with each step. This was Mrs. Mailu, the owner of the largest brothel in Saigon. The men immediately bowed their heads, groveling and flattering her. "Here are the girls we caught this time, ma'am. They might look scruffy now, but they'll grow up to be beauties," one man said. Mrs. Mailu snorted dismissively and examined each girl herself. When she saw Ho and I, her eyes briefly lit up, but she quickly masked her excitement to avoid being overcharged. She pulled Tuoi forward and lifted her hair, revealing a small scar near her hairline. "This one's scarred. And you call this premium stock?" she sneered. "It's just a tiny scar near the hairline. No one will notice. Please, ma'am, don't lower the price. We went through a lot of trouble this trip," one man pleaded. "Trouble? Don't try to fool me. I know you lot too well. I'm not paying full price for damaged goods. Half price for the scarred one or take her back," Mrs. Mailu said coldly. The men seethed but didn't dare argue. Selling to Mrs. Mailu fetched a better price than selling to wealthy families for house servants. They swallowed their anger and accepted the reduced price. As the transaction concluded, the girls' fates were sealed and their childhood stolen. Lost to a world of cruelty they could neither understand nor escape. In the end, they had no choice but to accept the price she offered. They returned to the boat and started moving to find a new shipment, while the 4 children were put onto a horse-drawn carriage. Accompanying them were 2 elderly women who, judging by their demeanor, were probably Madame Lu's servants. The women cast cold, indifferent glances at the children, causing Tuoi to shrink back and cling tightly to Ho and I in fear. When the carriage stopped, the 4 children were herded off. Ho and I looked around in astonishment at the bustling street, filled with hurried footsteps and the constant flow of carriages. The street vendors and eateries gave off the smell of food and cigarette smoke, while a few passers-by quickly avoided the children's curious gazes. The slightly ajar windows of the brothel revealed a dim light seeping through the cracks, casting an eerie atmosphere. Ho and I was immediately pushed inside, her heart pounding as she took in the dark, haunting space. The air was thick with cigarette smoke and the faint glow of oil lamps. The heavy atmosphere was punctuated by distant laughter and the soft strumming of musical instruments. Women dressed in garish clothes, their faces painted with thick makeup, sat beside customers, flashing seductive glances and engaging in intimate gestures. From that day on, Ho and I lived with Madame Mailu, a notorious brothel owner in Saigon. She ran a large, openly operating establishment that was always packed with customers. But recently, Madame Lu had realized that prostitutes didn't bring in as much money as she wanted, especially if they got pregnant, which would destroy their value. So, she was looking for a few beautiful children with potential, hoping to train them into refined women who could become mistresses for high-ranking officials or, if their prime passed, be married off as concubines to wealthy landlords. If lucky enough, they might even become modern-day socialites, competing for rich lovers who would shower them with money. After months of care and training, everything went according to Madame Lu's plan. Ho and I proved to be incredibly intelligent, speaking fluently and no longer mixing in her mountain dialect that had previously made her difficult to understand. Her delicate, beautiful face, if polished a little more, would surely turn her into a golden goose in the future. The other 2 girls were pretty but clumsy and forgetful. As for Tuoi, Madame Lu was slightly displeased by the faint scar on her face, which marred her otherwise perfect features. However, Tuoi was clever, quick-witted, and easy to command, making her a valuable asset. Because her goal was to create modern, well-mannered women, Madame Lu spared no expense, providing the girls with education and training in posture and speech. Even though they all lived under her roof, she had already fabricated clean, respectable backstories to erase any trace of their brothel origins. One night, while sleeping, Ho and I suddenly heard a woman screaming, followed by Madame Lu's furious shouting. She sat up, curious, while Tuoi rubbed her eyes and whispered, "Don't go out. If Sister Na catches you sneaking around at night, you'll get beaten." But the screams grew more desperate, and Ho Ni's curiosity overpowered her fear. "I'll just take a quick look. If they catch me, I'll say I went to the bathroom," she whispered, creeping toward the door and peeking into the punishment room. This room was where Madame Lu punished those who disobeyed or upset clients. Anyone sent here rarely walked out on their own, and even if they did, they needed weeks to recover. Tonight, the person kneeling in front of Madame Lu was none other than Sister Tu, which shocked Ho and I. For months, Madame Lu had shown special favor to her. In the dimly lit room, only faint oil lamp light illuminated the scene. Lon and Hugh stood like sentinels beside Madame Lu, while 4 burly servants loomed behind them, making 2 seem even smaller and more fragile. Without her usual garish makeup, 2 wore a simple white blouse, revealing her natural, innocent beauty. Madame Lu's eyes gleamed like knives as she spoke through gritted teeth. "Who did you get pregnant with? I haven't even sold your first night, and now you tell me you're pregnant? Are you playing games with me?" 2 crawled to Madame Lu's feet, bowing and begging. "Please, mother, give me more time. He promised he would come to buy my freedom. Please let me keep the baby. I'll do anything else you ask." "Anything? What do you have to offer me? I didn't buy you to just sit around. This is a brothel, not a temple. Men come here to smoke opium and sleep with women, not to talk about love and life. And that man who promised to save you, how long has it been since he showed up?" 2 fell silent, her tears streaming down as she realized the painful truth. It had been nearly 2 months since he last visited, after learning about her pregnancy.
Madame Lesner.
"I told you not to trust men. They all claim to be single, unhappy, or rich enough to save you. If he really loved you, why didn't he buy your freedom first? He probably fed you lies about being tied up or waiting for the right time. Let me tell you something. If a man truly wants something, he'll find a way. If he doesn't, he'll find an excuse. If he loved you so much, why did he leave you pregnant, knowing I'd find out and punish you?" Seeing 2 unable to answer, Madame Lu sighed and ordered Lon, "Bring her the medicine. Make sure she drinks it in front of me." 2's face turned pale. She banged her head on the cold tile floor, sobbing. "Please, mother. Let me keep the baby. Please." Lon grabbed the steaming bowl of medicine, her face twisted with cruel delight. She forced 2's mouth open, ready to pour the bitter liquid down her throat. But 2, using her last bit of strength, kicked Lon, causing her to fall and smash the bowl. Madame Lu, furious, stood up and snapped, "If you won't drink the wine of courtesy, you'll drink the wine of punishment. I don't care how, but by morning that baby better be gone." As Madame Lu left, she caught sight of Honi's silhouette behind the door, but she pretended not to see, hoping the girl would learn an important lesson. Never trust a man's promises. With Madame Lu gone, Lon clambered to her feet and kicked 2 viciously in the stomach. The servants pinned her down, ensuring she couldn't resist again. The night echoed with 2's muffled cries as Ho and I watched in horror, her innocence slowly slipping away. This was her first real lesson in the cruel world she had been thrust into. Madame Lon and Madame Hugh kept kicking 2's belly continuously until her lower body started bleeding. But the 2 cruel women did not stop. They kept pinching, trampling on 2's body, which was barely hanging on to life. At that moment, 2 truly wished for death to come, but unfortunately those who suffer greatly rarely die easily. Only when it was certain that the fetus was lost did Madame Lon order the servants, "Carry her back to the dormitory. Tell the others to take care of her. If 2 dies, you'll all suffer the consequences." The next morning, the entire brothel was in chaos. Servants and workers rushed to see what had happened. Honey and Tuoi, out of curiosity, pushed through the crowd. Honey, being small, quickly slipped through to get a better look. But when she looked up, she collapsed to the ground in shock. 2's body was hanging from an old starfruit tree, swaying gently in the wind. Her eyes were wide open as if about to pop out, her tongue hanging out, turning purple. Blood soaked her lower body, gluing her pants to her legs, dripping onto the ground, forming a large puddle. A few crows appeared out of nowhere, cawing mournfully. Madame Lu, fearing it would affect business, ordered the body taken down and secretly disposed of in the river at night. Until nightfall, the body was wrapped in a mat and left in a dark storage room. No one dared approach the room, even when supplies ran low. Eventually, the task of retrieving more wine fell to Madame Lon and Madame Hugh. Despite their fear, they refused to admit it. Lon barged into Honey and Tuoi's room, finding only Tuoi inside. "Where's Honey?" Lon asked coldly. "Madame Lu took her out this afternoon," Tuoi replied, trembling. Lon sneered and ordered Tuoi to fetch the wine. "Go to the storage room and get the wine." Now, I'm scared, and I can't carry much. Can someone else? Lon slapped Tuoi across the face. When I tell you to do something, you do it. Take one bottle at a time if you have to. Hugh and I will wait by the back door. With no choice, Tuoi walked to the storage room, her legs shaking. The room was cold and damp, the smell of mold mixed with the stench of blood. She grabbed 2 bottles of wine, ready to flee, but then she heard a strange chewing sound, as if someone was eating. Despite her fear, Tuoi peeked into the corner of the room. The mat that once wrapped Tu's body was now unraveled. Tu's bloody, tangled hair hung down as her head bent over her own belly, biting into her flesh and chewing hungrily. Tuoi froze in terror, unable to move. When the head sensed her presence, it stopped eating and slowly lifted to face her. Under the dim light, Tu's bloodied face hovered in the air, her intestines dangling beneath her severed neck. The monstrous head let out a ghastly laugh and flew straight at Tuoi. She screamed, collapsed, and fainted, dropping the bottles, which shattered on the floor. When people rushed in, they found Tuoi unconscious. Tu's body, now mutilated, had parts of her internal organs missing as if devoured by a wild animal. People whispered to each other, blaming wild dogs, but they secretly glared at Lon and Hugh with disdain for bullying children. When Madame Lu returned and heard the story, she slapped both women. No one touches the girls without my permission. I raise them like golden geese, not for scum like you to boss around. If you disobey again, you'll regret it. As for Tu's body, wrap it up and dump it in the river. Make sure no one sees. For servants obeyed, quietly carrying Tu's body to a deserted area. They dug a shallow grave, placed incense sticks, and knelt down to pray. Miss Tu, we're sorry. We only did what we did because we had no choice. Please forgive us. We hope you can let go of your suffering and find peace. The wicked will face their karma, so rest easy now. The men bowed, their incense smoke blending into the cold night air. Leaves rustled as if unseen footsteps escorted Tu's soul away. After fainting, Tuoi fell into a fever, mumbling deliriously. When she awoke, she avoided Honey entirely, claiming that Tu's ghost looked exactly like Honey. Terrified, Tuoi moved to another room with 2 other girls, isolating Honey. Honey, heartbroken, lost her only friend. The other girls shunned her, believing she was haunted. Crying herself to sleep, Honey dreamed of her mother, beautiful as ever, calling to her. Forgetting her fears, Honey ran to her mother, sobbing. Mom, I miss you. Please take me home.
I'm sorry.
I didn't mean to tell her May. I didn't know it would turn out like this. Please forgive me. Take me home. I don't want to stay here anymore. Her mother gently stroked Honey's hair, her voice filled with love. You are not alone, my child. I am always with you, but I cannot protect you directly. Remember this. Trust no one here, not even those closest to you. Their fear of you is your shield. If they stay away, they can't harm you. I am right here in this silver ring. I will always watch over you. Honey clutched the ring, tears streaming down her face as her mother's figure faded, leaving her in the darkness. The bright moonlight slipped through the window, gently illuminating the face of Ho and I, who was sound asleep. Her lips curved into a blissful smile, as she had dreamt of her mother that night. Since that dream, Ho and I no longer cared about anyone's attitude towards her. After a year, she had adapted to life here and happily focused on studying everything that Aunt Mailu taught her. Meanwhile, Men and Hung started to feel frustrated living with Tuoi. At first, isolating Ho and I had been amusing, but now they felt disadvantaged. Ho and I got to stay alone in a spacious room, while the 3 of them had to squeeze together. One day, Aunt Mailu was in a good mood and rewarded all 4 children with cakes. Ho and I excitedly took her cake back to her room, placed a portion next to her silver ring, and invited her mother to eat with her in spirit. On the other side, Men and Hung ate their cakes but still craved more. When they saw that Tuoi hadn't eaten hers yet, they exchanged a sly smile. Hey Tuoi, go get us some water. Eating the cake made our throats dry, Men said. Tuoi frowned. Why should I? If you're thirsty, get it yourself. Are you going or not? If not, go live downstairs with Ho and I. No one asked you to move in here and make the room cramped. We haven't even complained, and now you're acting up? Do you want me to beat you? Let me tell you, Ma doesn't like you. I overheard Aunt Lon telling Aunt Hugh that you cost too much to raise. Ma plans to kick you out of the waiting list and make you work like the other girls here once you're older. So don't act high and mighty with us. Tuoi's face flushed red, and she yelled back, I study hard and listen to Ma. She wouldn't treat me like that. While they argued, men stealthily reached for Tuoi's cake. Realizing it, Tuoi quickly snatched the cake and ran away, hiding in a secluded corner, clutching the cake as she sobbed. Suddenly, a lost stranger stumbled toward her and collapsed. A small porcelain box rolled out of his hand. It looked exactly like the ones used to hold opium. Tuoi briefly recalled Ma Li's stern warnings to never touch drugs. Later that evening, when Tuoi returned to the room, Hong blocked the door. Tuoi, intimidated, timidly handed over her cake. Hong grinned in satisfaction and, seeing that Men wasn't around, quickly devoured it. But after just a few bites, Hong grimaced. Ugh, why did you keep this cake so long? It's sour and bitter, Hong complained, but she had already swallowed it. Tuoi quietly went to bed, trembling under her blanket. Hong assumed she was crying and didn't care. She happily prepared her things for a bath, unaware that by midnight, she would start coughing, feeling nauseous. Soon after, Hong struggled to breathe, convulsing violently. Her eyes rolled back, foam spilling from her mouth, her body writhing like a fish out of water. Eventually, she lay still, lifeless. My Li's face darkened with fury. Over a year of investment all lost in an instant. But a dead girl couldn't bring back the money. Rubbing her temples, she muttered, Bury her. 10 years later, the children had grown into beautiful young women, like white lotuses rising from the filthy mud. Sensing the right time, Mai Lu gave them new names and moved them to different houses she had prepared. Ho and I became 2 yen, growing into a sharp, alluring beauty. In Western dresses, she exuded elegance. In a traditional ao dai, she embodied grace. Wealthy men vied for her attention, paying extravagant amounts just to spend a night with her. More than a year's income for an ordinary girl working in the brothel. Though Tuoi and Men grew beautiful too, they couldn't outshine Ho and I. Tuoi, renamed Tan Lu, had a fragile, delicate charm, while Men became Mong Deep, with an innocent, pure look. Together, they became Mai Li's golden geese. 2 yen's fame soared. She became the centerpiece of every party, making men compete fiercely for her favor. Only when they failed to win 2 yen would they turn to Tan Lu or Mong Deep. Though Lu resented always being second, she masked her feelings, staying close to 2 yen and even apologizing for their childhood conflicts. 2 yen forgave her and often introduced her to lucrative clients, ensuring Liu's income wasn't far behind Mong Deep's. Despite her charm, Liu's beauty was generic, and men quickly lost interest. Though they now had wealth and status, none dared defy Mai Lu. If she exposed their true origins as children raised in a brothel, they would lose everything. No wealthy man would be caught dead with a prostitute masquerading as a noblewoman. It would be the ultimate scandal. That year, 2 yen took a wealthy lover, Tu Tan, a prominent southern heir. But soon, he was ambushed and killed by one of 2 yen's jealous ex-lovers. Rumors spread that 2 yen bewitched her lovers with dark magic, driving them to madness and death. The gossip destroyed her reputation, and no one dared to approach her anymore. Mai Lu, frantic and exhausted, struggled to restore 2 yen's standing. She eventually decided to send a letter to Mr. Bakai in Vinlong, hoping to scheme a solution. After sealing the letter, she heard a knock on the door. "Come in," she said without looking up. Tan Lu entered, carrying a bowl of lotus seed sweet soup. "I made this for you, Ma. It helps with sleep. You've been losing rest over 2 yen's troubles, and you look so worn out. It breaks my heart to see you like this." Touched by the gesture, Mai Lu ate the soup. The fragrant, creamy taste comforted her, but soon, her vision blurred. She tried to shake her head clear, but her dizziness only worsened. As everything spun, she barely registered Liu's voice, soft as a whisper. "Why did you treat me like that?" When My Lu woke up, she found herself neatly tied to her bed, her hair bound tightly to the headboard. She couldn't move, and her heart pounded as she realized the once docile Lu was no longer the helpless girl she had raised. She realized her mouth was stuffed with something unbearably bitter, triggering a wave of nausea. She struggled to move, but her limbs were tightly bound. A cloth was tied across her mouth, rendering her attempts to scream into muffled, futile noises. She desperately tried to spit out whatever was in her mouth, but it was so sticky she couldn't push it out with her tongue. The bitterness numbed her tongue, and each gag reflex only ended in failure. When she struggled to catch her breath, she distinctly felt the substance soften and slowly slide down her throat, leaving her with no choice but to swallow it. Lu sat quietly beside the bed, watching Ba Lu intently. A large basin of water, which Ba Lu usually used to wash her face, sat nearby, with a neatly stacked pile of thick cloths. Seeing that Ba Lu had woken up, Lu tilted her head, a mocking smile playing on her lips. "Awake already? I've been waiting for you," she sneered. Ba Lu's bloodshot eyes glared at Lu, veins of rage coursing through them. If looks could kill, Lu would have been torn apart the moment Ba Lu's eyes opened. Yet, seeing that furious gaze only seemed to delight Lu more. She curled her lips into a twisted smile and spoke slowly. "How does it taste? The stuff you sell? The thing in your mouth is your own merchandise from a few days ago. Don't waste it, okay?" Ba Lu's eyes widened in horror, finally understanding the vile truth. It was opium. Her whole body jolted as she struggled even harder against the restraints, desperate to escape or at least vomit out the poison. But it was hopeless. Her body was tied down so tightly she couldn't even move her head. Lu gently dipped a cloth into the basin, letting the water soak through, then placed it over Ba Lu's face. The wet cloth clung to her skin, making it harder to breathe. Panic surged through Ba Lu as she thrashed against the bindings, her body instinctively fighting for air. Her mind screamed, pleading with Lu, "If you want to kill me, just stab me. Why torture me like this? I never treated you that badly. Why?" Almost as if reading her thoughts, Lu let out a cold, chilling laugh. She grabbed another wet cloth, layering it over the first. "You want to know why? Think about it. How would you feel if, at 17, you were sold off to be some old man's fourth wife? I know I'm not as pretty as Tu Yen or as charming as Deep, but didn't I give you every cent I earned? And yet, you still wanted to sell me just to save Tu Yen's reputation? How is that fair?" Lu leaned in close, her eyes burning with hatred. "With the amount of opium you've swallowed, it won't be long before you die, just like Hung did back then. But no, I don't want you to die quickly. I want you to suffocate, to feel the agony of slowly fading away, just like I did." One wet cloth after another, Lu pressed them onto Ba Lu's face. The more cloths piled on, the more violently Ba Lu convulsed. Her body arched and trembled, her survival instincts desperately seeking air. The veins on her forehead bulged, her heart pounded erratically, and her ears rang until, with the eighth cloth, her body seized in one final, brutal spasm before going completely limp. Lu waited a moment longer before carefully peeling the layers of cloth away. Beneath them, Ba Lu's face was grotesquely contorted. Eyes rolled back, veins burst in her whites, mouth gaping with trails of blackened opium-tinged saliva dripping down her cheeks. Lu shivered involuntarily, a cold dread creeping up her spine. She hurriedly cleaned up, cut the ropes binding Ba Lu, adjusted the body's position, and quickly slipped out of the room without looking back. No one knew what had happened that night. If anyone wondered why Ba Lu forbade anyone from coming near her room after dark, they would never get an answer. The brothel bustled with its usual chaos, completely unaware of the gruesome murder that had taken place just steps away. Lu pretended to be surprised and then answered Tu Yen with a mocking voice. "Oh my God, why are you so harsh with me, Yen? We've lived together since we were little. Don't you understand my nature by now? How could you say that? I just wanted to fulfill Mom's last wish. and I only want what's best for you. Look at yourself. Your reputation in this town is already ruined. It's better to find a husband, even if he's a bit old and has many wives. At least he's rich enough to spoil and take care of you for the rest of your life. Honestly, I wish I could have that. If you have it and don't know how to enjoy it, then I really don't know what to say to you." Tu Yen stood up, wanting to leave, but 5 tall men immediately blocked her path, ready to capture her if given the order. Tu Yen turned back to look at Lu with eyes filled with hatred. Seeing the tension, Mong Deep stepped in to ease the situation. "Lu, Mom is gone. We grew up together. If not for love, then at least for the bond we share. Can we let go of marrying Tu Yen to Mr. Kai? If it were you, you wouldn't want this either, right?" Lu glared at Deep with eyes sharp as knives and snapped, "If you say another word, I'll marry you off instead." Mong Deep immediately lowered her gaze and fell silent. Seeing her submissive attitude, Lu was pleased. She turned to Tu Yen, smiling. "Oh, I forgot to tell you. I already had your belongings moved to your husband's house. See how thoughtful I am." Tu Yen's face darkened, remembering the small box where she kept her mother's silver ring containing her soul. She lunged at Lu, wanting to scratch her shameless face, but the servants quickly restrained her. Lu laughed gleefully and waved her hand, ordering them to take Tu Yen to her room and watch her carefully. "Make sure she's ready to be taken to her husband tomorrow morning. The famous Tu Yen of Saitan will have a grand send-off." The servants tried to drag Tu Yen away, but before they could touch her, she shook them off. "I'll walk myself," she spat, her voice trembling with rage. Watching Tu Yen's fading figure, Lu felt that sleeping with those men to obtain the property transfer document didn't seem like such a big loss. Even Madame Mai Lu, despite her immense wealth, had started as an orphan. It was her beauty and sharp mind that turned her from a prostitute into a brothel madam, building this empire. Perhaps exploiting the bodies of women had brought its own curse, leaving her childless, so the fortune had no heir. That's why it so easily fell into Lu's hands. Every step she took seemed carefully calculated. But her triumph was interrupted by the screeches of Madame Hugh, berating the new girls for not cleaning up after Madame Lawn had an accident. The memories of her own past humiliation rushed back, and Lu ordered both of them to be brought to the punishment room. Lu sat on a chair, looking down at the 2 old women, one sick, one washed up, tied up and trembling. One is diseased, the other is useless, only good at oppressing others. Keeping you both is a waste of food. Why am I like this? Because of you 2 witches. Madame Hugh screamed back, "I never did anything to you. If you let me go, I'll rip your face apart." Their vile curses only fueled Lu's fury. She ordered a brazier of burning charcoal to be brought in, lifted a glowing ember with tongs, and admired it as it glowed red-hot. "Hold Madame Lan's mouth open," she commanded. The servants hesitated but obeyed, forcing Lan's mouth wide. Seeing Lu approaching with the ember, they shuddered. "Hold her tight. If she gets burned, it's on you." Understanding her intent, they swallowed their fear and held Lan down. Madame Hugh, trembling, begged through tears, "Please, miss, I beg you. Forgive me. I promise I'll change. I swear." Lu smiled sweetly, her voice dripping with venom. "Did you forgive Sister too when she begged you?" She dropped the ember into Lan's mouth. The old woman writhed in agony, her muffled screams echoing through the room. Without an ounce of mercy, Lu ordered them to be taken far away and abandoned, left to fend for themselves. The next morning, after cheerfully waving goodbye to Tu Yen, Lu returned to her room, sleeping soundly, content that her life was finally her own, no longer beholden to anyone. But her peace was shattered by knocking on her door. Annoyed, she got up, her face twisted in irritation. "What now?" she snapped. From outside, a servant girl's timid voice answered, "Miss, many people have come to see you." Frustrated, Lu descended the stairs, only to freeze at the sight of soldiers filling the hall. Mong Deep sat on the judge's lap, giggling coquettishly.
Liễu Sơ Hớt Sang.
She recognized the judge immediately. He was one of the men she had slept with to get the property deed. She felt the cold sweat on her palms, her confidence evaporating. What is happening? Her voice wavered. Mong Deep didn't even glance at her, continuing to flirt with the judge. Your Honor, it's so unfair. Madame Mailu clearly sold the brothel to me. But now this woman shows up with a fake deed. It even has your seal on it. Please get justice for me, darling. The judge stroked her chin and said, if it has my seal, the other document must be a forgery. I won't let my sweetheart suffer. Lu's world crumbled. Soldiers seized her, beating her as they ransacked her room. They found the deed and handed it to Mong Deep, who gleefully tore it to shreds, scattering the pieces over Lu's battered body. Everything Lu had schemed for vanished overnight. Left sobbing on the floor, she tried to gather the torn scraps, but her dreams of freedom and power had already slipped through her fingers like ash. Everything was lost. When Lu finally regained a bit of composure, the judge and the soldiers had already left. Mong Deep gently lifted the hem of her dress and sat down across from Lu, whose hair was disheveled and clothes tattered. Deep sneered, "Why do you look so dumb? You still don't understand what just happened, do you? Honestly, I almost feel sorry for you. But I'm in a good mood today, so let me explain everything. It all started when rumors spread that Tu Yen was practicing witchcraft, right? Do you know who started that rumor? It was me. The money you made was mostly thanks to Tu Yen, and once she fell, you were bound to go down with her." Lu stared at Mong Deep in disbelief. This wasn't the Mong Deep she used to know. Deep burst into laughter, then continued coldly, "And the one who suggested marrying you off to get money to restore Tu Yen's reputation? That was me too. The buffaloes fight, and the fishermen profits. Did you all really think I was stupid? Think back carefully. Ever since we were kids, whenever something bad happened, it was always you and Tu Yen who took the fall instead of me. If I were truly stupid, would I have survived until now?" Deep's voice turned sharp, her eyes gleaming with malice. "Don't think I don't know you caused Hung's death. That day, when I was about to bathe, I saw you sneaking around, stuffing something into a pastry. I followed you, curious about what you were up to. But what I saw, you just handed the pastry to Hung, and she devoured it like she was afraid you'd take it back. So I let her die. I never did anything to hurt you. Why are you treating me like this?" Lu sobbed. Deep tilted her head, smiling cruelly. "Because you and Tu Yen are obstacles in my way. That's all. I hate this brothel. I loathe my Lu for forcing me into this life. You should understand the feeling of being treated like a commodity, of being forced to sleep with old men who could be your father. Do you think I accept this fate willingly? I hate her. I want freedom. But you and Tu Yen kept obediently following her orders, pouring money into her hands, making her more powerful. Your stupidity and blind loyalty disgust me. So don't blame me for this, Lu." Before Lu could react, 4 or 5 girls, who had been waiting in ambush, pounced on her. They pinned her down, slapping her face repeatedly. Mong Deep stood aside, arms crossed, her smile cold and distant. "Stop, stop," Deep said, her tone light and mocking. "We're all sisters here. Why resort to violence? If you want to punish Lu, why don't we make her contribute something to the brothel instead? How about this? Strip her naked and drag her out into the street. Shout out to the people of Saigon to come and admire the beauty of Tan Lu. We can use the opportunity to advertise our brothel. A fresh new attraction to lure in customers. What do you think?" The girls burst into laughter and eagerly carried out Deep's cruel idea. Lu thrashed and screamed, desperately clutching at her clothes, but she was no match for the mob. The sound of fabric tearing echoed through the room, mingling with harsh curses. Liu's cries grew hoarse with despair, yet she couldn't escape. They dragged her out into the street and shoved her to the ground. The crowd gathered, sneering and shouting vile words. "Hey, isn't this the famous Tan Lu?" someone jeered. "I heard she's the daughter of a rich man. Why is she coming out of a brothel? Oh, so she's a prostitute? Girl, are you working here? I'll come by tonight." "Huh, I thought she was classy, but she's just another whore." Lu stumbled through the crowd, clutching her body, trying to hide her shame. But the mob kept pushing, their cruel laughter ringing in her ears like a death knell. Just when Lu thought she'd go mad from the humiliation, a tall, handsome young man rushed forward. Without hesitation, he threw a large tablecloth over her, shielding her from the prying eyes. His face burned with anger as he turned to scold the crowd. "Are you still human? Seeing someone in such a situation, you mock her instead of helping? Where is your conscience?" The crowd quieted for a moment under his harsh words, but their judgmental eyes never left Lu. Seizing the distraction, Lu turned and fled back to the brothel. The girls who had humiliated her didn't even bother stopping her. They just watched, some still snickering. Mong Deep leaned against the doorway, her eyes glinting with triumph. Lu was utterly destroyed, her reputation shattered beyond repair. Deep stretched her arms, tossing a stack of money to the girls who helped throw Lu to the streets. "From now on, no one can threaten or stand in my way anymore." Back in her room, Lu hastily dressed and sat in a daze. Her head pounded with pain as she realized Mong Deep's goal was to ruin her completely, to make sure she could never rise again in Saigon. Even if she wanted to marry an old man for money, who would take her now? Her eyes hardened. She started packing her belongings, only to find all her hidden money gone. Her hands trembled with rage, but she knew causing a scene now would only hurt her more. She touched her earlobes, feeling the last pair of gold earrings she had left. She ripped them off, stuffing them into her bag, and clenched her fists. One day, she swore, she would come back and make Mong Deep pay. Mong Deep saw Lu carrying her belongings, seemingly ready to leave. The 4 girls from earlier immediately stepped in to block her way, their voices sharp and harsh. "Where do you think you're going? Who gave you permission to leave?" From inside, Mong Deep stepped out, her demeanor calm and leisurely. "Just let her go," she said. Liu's eyes locked onto Mong Deep, sharp as blades, promising vengeance. In response, Mong Deep smiled defiantly. Leaving the brothel, Lu walked straight to a familiar shop. She placed a pair of gold earrings on the counter, her voice hoarse with exhaustion. "I want to sell these, and do you know anyone with a car? I want to go to Vin Long." The shop owner, who once flattered her, now looked at her with cold indifference. His eyes brimmed with contempt, as if her disgrace had spread everywhere. "I have a car. I can call someone to take you to Vin Long. But consider this, the fare," he said, pointing at the earrings. Knowing she was being extorted, Lu clenched her fists but still nodded, aware she had no other choice. They hit the road at dawn. The distant, quiet journey stretched on until a sudden honk startled her. The driver panicked, losing control for a moment before safely pulling over. "What happened?" Tu Yen asked, her voice laced with worry. "Someone threw a rock and broke the windshield, miss," the driver replied. Hearing this, Tu Yen and the driver got out to investigate. Not far away, she noticed a parked car. A sense of dread welled up inside her. She wanted to urge the driver to leave immediately, but as she turned back, she saw him, Ka Nan, appearing like a ghost beside the driver. Ka Nan was one of Tu Yen's obsessive pursuers and the one who had killed Tu Tan, causing a wave of rumors in Saigon that she practiced black magic to seduce men. His wealthy and powerful father had covered up his crimes, but Tu Yen knew better than anyone how much she wished this man would disappear from her life. Before she could react, Ka Nan pulled out a long knife and stabbed the driver repeatedly. The man screamed before collapsing, blood pooling on the ground. Tu Yen, horrified, tried to run, but he caught her by the hair, yanking her back with seething rage. "I heard you're getting married?" he snarled. "I love you so much, and this is how you treat me? Tell me, what do I lack? Why would you leave me?" Tu Yen knew resisting meant death. Despite the searing pain on her scalp, she forced a smile and spoke gently. "You misunderstood. I'm not getting married. I'm just visiting relatives." His grip tightened, eyes darkening. He pressed the blood-stained knife to her face. "Liar! Lu told me you were going to Vin Long to get married. Do you know what I went through to find you? I even hit my father. He's lying at home, half dead. All for you." I don't need anything else, just you. If I can't have you, no one can." His voice dripped with malice as he raised the knife. Tu Yen immediately hugged him, sobbing. "Please, you must get justice for me. Lu set me up. I swear, I only love you. Can't you see my feelings? I'm heartbroken because you doubt me." "Really? Let me take you home." He softened, smiling. "I bought a new house for us. It'll be our love nest." Tu Yen feigned excitement. "That sounds wonderful. Let's go right away." His face lit up with childlike joy. He threw the knife away, wiped his hands clean, and happily chatted with her as if he hadn't just taken a life. He held her captive in a secluded house for 3 days, painting her portrait obsessively. She had to keep smiling for hours until her face grew stiff. But if her smile faded, he would fly into a violent rage, smashing furniture and screaming. "You don't love me anymore, do you? Is there someone else?" He ranted. "I do love you," Tu Yen whispered, forcing a smile. "I'm just tired. Could you buy me some pandan layer cake? I'm craving it so much." Seeing her smile, he instantly calmed down, the madness fading from his eyes. "Of course, anything for you," he said, locking the door carefully before leaving. The moment he was gone, Tu Yen grabbed a stool and began smashing it against the door. Her hands went numb, but she refused to stop. She knew if Kaonen returned and discovered her escape attempt, he would surely kill her. She was willing to risk everything, even her life, to break free. Luckily, earlier, Nan had smashed through everything, so the door hinge seemed about to give way. Tu Yen threw the chair aside, summoned all her strength, and rammed into the door. It burst open, and she rushed outside, collapsing onto the ground. She didn't dare linger, immediately struggling to her feet. Spotting the gate lined with sharp barbed wire, she didn't hesitate. She climbed over it without a second thought. The wire tore through her skin, leaving her body streaked with blood from her thighs to her arms, but she paid no mind. After crossing the fence, she tumbled onto the road, her face and hair smeared with blood and dust. In that state, no one would recognize her as the once famous heiress, Tu Yen. Despite her exhaustion, she dragged herself toward the main road. In the distance, she saw a car approaching. With her last ounce of strength, she hurled herself forward, and luckily, the car stopped just in time. A young man and the driver stepped out. Tu Yen wanted to cry for help, but her vision blurred. Before losing consciousness, she could only whisper, "Help me." Dear listeners, you've just finished part 1 of the story The Haunting Forest. Guttrencher, written by Nock. See you again on the next evening broadcast for part 2, which will also conclude the series. Wishing you all a good night.